Hi, I'm Dr. Evelyn Youth Spath. You might know me as the former Chief of Staff at CSU Bakersfield. You might know me as a gospel singer, a worship leader, or a preacher's kid, the youngest child in a very large family in a household of faith. My dad was a pastor and my mom a praying mother. In fact, my first memory of life was of prayer at age 4. Prayer was our family's bedtime ritual, with all us kids crowding in, kneeling around our parents' bedside, heads bowed, hands clasped, eyes closed. And my mother, she would pray these long, fervent prayers, laying hands on each one of us and calling us by name, asking the Lord's guidance, protection, and blessing over us. My faith in God was the air I breathed. From my very earliest memory, I knew God, or by whatever name you might call a higher power, as omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful, and ever-present. So at age 5, I didn't know where God was the day a man raped me. And I know that must feel like a gut punch, and you weren't expecting me to say that, and I apologize the way I want it to be apologized to, because I never expected that to happen to me. I didn't understand why God, who had the power to protect me, didn't, even when it continued to happen. And the meaning I gave those traumatic childhood events was that God didn't consider me worth saving. That self-image was even more deeply embedded at age 9 when a close relative repeatedly violated me. And that sense of worthlessness became my story, my truth, my identity. My family never talked about what happened. They probably didn't know how. There was no counseling, only silence, which cloaked me in shame that I carried for 5 decades, 50 years into my adult life. And I didn't know it then, but I know now from the research of Dr. Brene Brown that shame thrives in secrecy, in silence and judgment, self-judgment or the judgment of others. And I had created the perfect environment. That disempowering story, it cost me greatly. I shrunk, I played small, I yearned for external approval and validation and love because I didn't have them for myself from within. I chose predatory partners and abusive relationships. I was paralyzed by procrastination and perfection. I was afraid to fail because failing would prove that I wasn't good enough, even through earning a master's degree and a doctorate. It was just 2 years ago, at the age of 58, that I began to do deep inner work to challenge my limiting beliefs and heal. I realized that I had been driven by a story I told myself as a voiceless, powerless, helpless, and terrified 5-year-old child who was just trying to make sense of things that made no sense. That story and the way I thought as a child, it served me then, but it does not serve me now. And so I have written a new story of resilience, of perseverance, and empowerment. Now, I can't change the things that happened to me back then, but what I can change and what I have changed is the meaning I gave to them and my relationship to those experiences. I share my story because I'm committed to helping others who have been violated in any way heal, experience unspeakable joy, and love that overflows. I share my story because unaddressed adverse childhood experiences, also called ACEs, have deep, lifelong impacts on our behavior, our physical and mental well-being, and the quality of our life. These adverse experiences include physical, sexual, or emotional abuse or neglect, growing up with household challenges such as addictions, the violent treatment of women, parental divorce or separation, mental health episodes, or having someone in your household who has been incarcerated. In a landmark ACE study, Kaiser Permanente found that almost 2/3 of adults, 2 out of 3, have experienced at least one ACE, and the majority of those report experiencing more than one. And there's a striking direct link between adverse childhood experiences and at-risk behavior, mental and emotional illnesses, issues, and the leading causes of death. People with 4 or more experiences were 4 times more likely to be depressed than someone with no experiences, and 12 times more likely to attempt suicide. People with higher scores, meaning even more experiences, are 30 to 50 times more likely to make suicide attempts. And people with 6 or more ACEs died an average of 20 years earlier than people without ACEs. So our emotional and mental health and well-being, they don't just matter, they are a matter of life and death. So I encourage you to break the silence, break the secrecy, end the judgment, and apply the antidote: compassion, empathy, and competent support. Start talking about it. Share your story about adverse childhood experiences with a mental health professional who can help you get to the root cause of your emotions, behavior, and mental stressors. Utilize the resources at NAMI. If you're having suicidal ideations, please call the National Suicide Prevention Helpline at 800-273-8255. Help is here. You are not alone, and one conversation can save a life.